The most meaningful connections we have in our lives, it started with play. There was some kind of playfulness involved. And today, in our new episode of Inside Bliss, we will be talking about playful path to intimacy. And till now, we had our AI co-host, but today it's going to be different because now we have a human co-host who is Anchal, and he is an expert in the field of intimacy, but I don't want to talk more about who she is or what she does. I would love to listen to what she does from her. Welcome, Anchal. Welcome to Inside Bliss. How are you?
Thank you, Neil. I'm feeling actually quite playful. I'm somatic sexologist, and what that means is that I look at sexuality through a lens of mindfulness, through a lens of embodiment. Sex is just not two people having intercourse, but it's if you unpack it, it's how they connect with each other and how connect with themselves. Yeah, and how that affects um, the daily life um, at large, I would say. It's more about having a sense of belonging and more embodiment and connection with oneself. That's what I'm most interested in.
So looking at this connection,
Mm.
like what I said earlier, the most meaningful connections actually start with some kind of play or a playful approach. But what do you think uh, playful intimacy feels like?
Um, Tracks back to playful intimacy doesn't have to be with a human. It can start off with being curious. As children, we are so deeply curious about our own bodies. So it starts with playing with our hands, then observing our hands, picturing ourselves, tracking different sensation that it may arise. Sometimes it may be an ouchy sensation, sometimes it may be a pleasurable or a yummy sensation. And then we don't know what to do with these hands. So then we start using these hands, touching everything without agenda, especially the ground, like putting our hands under in the ground, feeling for the texture, feeling for the dampness or the dryness, and just getting gleeful and excited because it's a new experience.
And what if there was someone else instead of the ground?
Um, have you seen how babies interact with each other?
I don't recall specifically. I probably, of course, I've seen it, but which aspect of it are you more interested in right now?
I mean, when children interact with each other, when they are beginning to kind of walk or wobble, they'll just like with their bellies go forward and with their, you know, belly is like your heart center. They just go and boom, like embrace the other person. Or if they're toothless with their open mouth, they'll suck on everything and they're absorbing that information that, oh, this is so pleasurable and this is a human. But their experience is not to get anything from them, but to absorb touch and, and see what that feels like. That experience. It's not a transactory experience. It's more like, yeah, I want to absorb as much sensation that I want right now and widen my experience. I feel when much happens without agenda as adults, we just pure uh, curiosity without no motive, and it's just so much more juicier to play with.
What would be the aspect of this when we look at it from a different perspective? Meaning, okay, we are curious, children are curious, they are touching for the sensation, we are touching for the sensation, but isn't that sensation in a way to serve ourselves? Is it, um, like, doesn't it become just for taking in a way? How can we transform that with play? Like, if I touch you just for the sake of my sensation, then it just becomes my thing, but you're also there.
Yeah.
How can we turn it into a playful, intimate moment?
Yeah, children are really good with taking, like touching for their curiosity, and for their awareness of their experience. So now, when we are adults, then there's a piece of consent which is at play. I agree. We need to be mindful of other people's boundaries, their desires, and their needs in that moment. So, I mean, one could invite a lot of intimacy with like no agenda play. So, for example, instead of stripping down clothes, one could do a reverse striptease and put the clothes on, but in the nicest way possible. Be clumsy and just embrace your client's self. That you're not trying to be this prince or this queen or this different sort of archetypes, but playful bumblebees or pandas or one game was aliens trying to have sex for the first time, for example. So, lightly.
Aliens having sex for the first time. Okay. What is this? Like, where am I?
How do I just make it more playful and not serious in the bedroom? Because what happens with the great thing about laughter, it just eases, and there is just free flow of oxytocins and dopamine, and then you could also roll a what is that? When you what is this thing called? When you wanna just roll you use your mouth to blow bubbles on somebody's stomach.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but like, yeah, I don't know what it's called, but like, yeah, like blowing on skin.
Blowing bubbles or playing
Yeah.
folks that children would like do on their stomach. So
Yeah.
I can say my own example, like the other night when I was playing with a beloved, just suddenly just motor rolled on my tummy, and I just laughed for 15 minutes. And this, it's like it's got shock value, it's got pleasant surprise, and it's delightful.
So
So
can we call this kind of like a more of a lighthearted exploration? Like, it's not intense. It's not really. Yeah, I'm sexy and like, yeah, like, or like from a king, queen. Yeah, I will elevate you. It doesn't have that, but it's more lighthearted and it's just exploring.
yeah, it's another game which it's ridiculous. It's like royalties trying to seduce each other with ridiculous compliments like Majesty, I love your elbows. So it just you one also, it's an invitation to play, it's an invitation to be a comic, it's an invitation not to take life so seriously and even sex so seriously, because conventional information just even for me, when I see information around sex, it's always goal oriented. Oh yeah, better, faster, longer, harder, sustained erections, and it's a lot of pressure on the body. Sometimes the body can have to be a lump and say, I don't want to move. Maybe you can give me a ridiculous compliment like, be come close to my ears and say, I love pizza topping with jalapenos.
This is
You
very.
can,
Please
go
go on.
on.
Please go on.
You can be ridiculous in sex and still have the most fun.
This is very interesting because uh, having fun this way with another person is actually easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like with their energy, with their vibe, with their mood, like you can really start playing and they do something and you do something in response and it just grows like an avalanche effect. But in our previous episodes on Inside Bliss, we were talking with Maya about uh, how the connection with the self is also important. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so how can we have playful connections with ourselves? Because the connection with another is intimacy, but the connection with the self is also intimacy.
Um, I was advised when I was very serious, join an improv club. Really use this muscle of finding alternative solutions, as ridiculous as it may sound. Because where else do we create spaces for improvised play in our lives?
Mm-hmm.
It's planning, do this, do that, do that. But to create a space where we can really have fun with just being ourselves. Like a comedy club, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Just, just it would be so much of uh, creativity inside of us and creative, fun solutions to hypothetical, you know, scenarios that might just be so delicious and inviting, and we may discover something about ourselves that we did not even know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so taking time for structured play or for improvised play
Mm-hmm.
becomes interesting. That's one area I feel. Um, I feel like dancing on the most ridiculous songs would help.
Using your body in very weird ways definitely invokes that sense of self-play and connection with the self also, therefore bringing more intimacy. I see, like we were actually talking about this topic before we started recording, and it was about love, the pure love that children give you, the generosity of it, the pureness of it, and and it's important. It has this sense of openness to it. But when we say, okay, when we're playing with ourselves, having that playful moments to increase our intimacy, we get to know ourselves more. And
Yeah.
there is this sense of uh, accepting what we see. Because if we don't accept what we see, then even though we see it, we start rejecting ourselves, right?
Any more?
Let's say we're in a playful way. We start to dance in a very weird way. Actually, before this recording, I was dancing by myself. I just heard this song and I was dancing. And in certain moments, I was doing very silly things. But in certain moments, I felt like the way mm, the way I used my muscles was very masculine. That I also like that part of me as well. So I was like moving in very strict and hard motions. But in certain moments, I was very flimsy and loopy, and there are very different sides of me. So when I'm playing with myself in this way,
Mhm.
If I see myself flimsy, I'm a man. I cannot be flimsy. If I don't accept that part of me, I think it puts a filter between me and myself. So that brings a topic, I think, to self-love.
Mhm. Yeah. Using good play has been used as a tool for discovery.
Mhm.
How fast can you run? You'll run.
Mhm.
Play that can run fast.
Yeah.
So, if one can get as imaginative with play,
Mhm.
um, that just invites more discovery. So it could be through music, it could be through, going to an improv class and figuring out different voices.
Mhm.
It could be with singing a song that you've just made up. Just if I had to serenade myself and I had to seduce myself, in what way could I seduce myself in the most ridiculous way and still like it? I could write this song. So many. It's also the beauty of play is it's an invitation to reimagine and reimagine um, ourselves or our experiences. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So creativity is like the most essential part. And with and what is sex? What is the sexual energy? It's a creative life force. And the more you kind of use it, the more you kind of give it the fire or give it the water or give it the sunlight and the nourishment, the more it will bloom, huh? It will be blissful.
This creativity side, this being imaginative to try new things,
Yes.
it is also very scary for some people. Like sometimes it's scary for me even, and like, well, I don't know why I even. It's also scary for me, and this is also one of the reasons why we build Bliss, like have to give people a safe space to write the most imaginative scenarios so that they can read about these in stories. And how do you how do you think these fantasies or stories or this imaginative way of exploration in stories can empower self-love or create some kind of liberation? How do you think that this can happen?
We see ourselves in the stories that we write or others write.
Mm-hmm.
Some we have related to as children through bedtime stories.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was always a hero, there was a villain, there was an obstacle, and we overcame that and we achieved that. Sometimes, I don't know, for example, what is the most creative story that you heard as a child? What remains with you as a baby that mom would have shared with you? You recall that? Which had a lot of thinking.
Hmm. Stories in that sense. Okay. I'm thinking, trying to remember. I don't seem to recall right now what kind of stories. Hmm. For me, it was more of me playing by myself, which I enjoyed a lot, and creating not stories but systems for me. Interesting. Interesting how I was not very much interested in stories, but for me, stories took place as sharing my experiences of what happened in the day, like what I discovered in the day, and sharing those would be my stories.
Mm-hmm. So to circle back on the impact of stories in our lives, uh, there's fiction, there's non-fiction, but for me, if I recall, I only recall sadly the Snow Whites and the piglets who made three different stacks of houses. One was hay, one was brick, and one was something. So the wolf came, huff and puff, and blew the yeah. So one of those, and I used to love listening to all these stories. But it made me feel like, oh man, he was creative. He thought of making a brick house, and the other people were making it of mud. They were making of I don't know, some other material. But it just made me realize, yeah, that was very nice, and I love that the wolf could not access the house and he was safe. I look at storytelling as a way for me feeling safe and inspired. When, for example, I'm trying to link it to intimacy. For example, if somebody shares about their desires in the most playful way, right, it gives me permission to engage in an experience that I would have not thought of before in the most creative way. Somebody wrote that big story. It did not come from me. But I equally enjoyed participating in it. And it helped me, and I still recall it, and it just makes me still joyful. So if I want to read a story on bliss, written by someone, I not have the same experience or inspiration, but that would just bring new um, um, an entirely different experience and just increase my I would say what is the word? Yeah, I would say experience again.
These experiences increase our experience, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about it's about just like you said, it's about discovery these plays.
Yes.
And one thing I'm very curious, not necessarily me being curious, but curious about how you're going to tie these things together in terms of we have been talking about these playful moments, but and you have shared some glimpses of clues of how they're related with our sexuality. But how would you really connect all these things to our sexual fantasies and sexual being, sexual presence, and sexual play? How are they connected? Like what we have talked about so far? Because we talked about the piglets, we talked about children, touching about children, but like when we think about sex, we don't tend to think about children. We think about adults. So how are these things connected?
There are core erotic beliefs. It's like the movie would be I enjoy thriller, I enjoy comedy, I enjoy suspense, or I do action. The characters may keep on changing, but the theme would remain the same. So if my core erotic belief, if I believe, so sexuality is also how I perceive myself or how I want to be perceived. And what is the meaning? Meaning, it's about having touch, having sensation, and the meaning I attach behind touch and sensation. So if the feeling is that I want to feel powerful, I want to feel, so it's power, it could be prestige. These are different themes that run in our core erotic belief systems. For example, I'll give you an example. I think I am a valuable person. I consider myself as a woman of power and prestige. So want to have experiences which actually bring that out of me being seen as an object of desire, me being seen as someone powerful that I could seduce, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And unconsciously, when I have that theme, I would select mates. Now, if say for example, if I see myself as an exotic tigress
Mm-hmm.
and wants to be tamed,
Mm-hmm.
who would an exotic tigress that wants to be tamed select as a mate?
Probably a guy with a whip. Or a woman with a whip. I don't know, but like some person with a whip.
Men who are strong, men who have strength. I mean, for example, like in my head, a man of an equal amount of power or prestige, because these are erotic themes of power, who really knows how to tame a tigress, and he has experience with a wild animal, with a wild animal. He knows like where to touch, where to tame, how to control brute force.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game that touches
Mm-hmm.
because that is the experience I want to have.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So my core erotic belief, how I view myself as a sexual being, translates in my unconscious way of selecting a mate to play with.
Mm-hmm.
So one could actually reflect on, take out 3 to 5 most heightened sexual experience you may have had. They might have a theme running across it.
Okay. So in a way, you are saying that each person has a type, but that type has nothing to do with physical appearance, but it is fully related with how we perceive ourselves, so that it reflects on the other persons and our play partner.
Yeah, it's the meaning I attach to sex and how I want to be viewed as a sexual person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to have that, because that is the core of the essence of my being.
This is very interesting because then this means that Bliss, in a way, the app, becomes a great platform for people to test these things out, to read stories and create stories around, hey, I feel like this and I want to experience this. And then
Mm-hmm.
just read a story where that person is personified as like an exotic tigress, for example. And then like what does that look like? What does the other partner look like in such a story? Or what does the relationship look like? So that you can really start to see yourself experiencing that and then see for yourself whether that is the real core belief you have about yourself or not. Or
Yeah.
maybe is it similar to the relationships that you're having or not?
So I will unpack this for you. I was fed up of dating men who were very successful.
Mm-hmm.
They had no time for me. So then I realized, why am I choosing men like that? I had to reflect on my core erotic belief because, yes, I loved being the wild tigress that I am.
Mm-hmm.
It only, and who are those men that the tigress in me allowed to touch? They have to be men who are leaders. They have to be men who are creative or strong and who know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these men happen to be, people who were management, for example. But when you are at top management, you are married to work, and then everything else comes secondary. So then the flip side was that sure they were leaders, but then in their priority list as leaders, was probably fourth or fifth. I wasn't their top priority. But I was choosing, and then I realized, okay, this is my responsibility that I'm consciously, now consciously selecting a mate. And I still want the leader who has time for me. That's where it shifted.
Okay. Okay. So, wow. That reflection of the self, that looking at your erotic core beliefs of how you see yourself really can be very useful in how you describe it. Wow. Thank you for that. I think we're getting close to the ending of our episode. Is there anything that you would like to add to anything that we talked about so far about playful path to intimacy?
Yeah, I was actually looking up 1 second for some fun games. Let's see.
What do you mean find games?
Fun
Ah,
games.
fun games. Okay, okay. So you're looking for some fun games.
Yeah, it's like being in the bedroom
Hmm.
where like, be the secret lover who can't keep their cover. Be the or you're being kidnapped, but the kidnapper accidentally falls in love with you.
You're so attractive that even the kidnapper falls in love with you. Well, in many cases, it turns into rape with kidnappers. Like,
It's a fantasy also. For example, like you could be a to get me into trouble, but um, let's see.
let's break the taboos.
Let's break the taboos. Yeah. Let's see. Is human dating an undercover vampire?
The vampire part, right now we don't have it in Bliss. We focus on the contemporary stories. So like contemporary and physical reality type of thing. But that vampire aspect could be maybe in a vampire costume.
Yeah, in a vampire costume, or a werewolf who has a crush on you. How would that feel like? Well, um, I think just having fun with things. It's like, imagine this like um, you're at a scene,
Mhm,
you're a flirting expert, but
mhm.
your advice is terrible. So it's like you're a completely unqualified seduction coach.
What would that relationship look like?
So it's like I just thinking about them just made me my belly laugh. So I thought just have this ridiculous day and just see how your heart opens up.
Wow, thank you for that, Anchal. We will see each other on the next Inside Bliss episode.
Yes.
So to all the audience out there, bye.
Bye.